I've been uploading videos to this channel for several months now, and every time I upload, I always love reading the comments from all of you guys. Partly because they're mostly positive, which gives me the encouragement and motivation to keep uploading, and partly because it means I don't have to work as hard to come up with video ideas. Whether you all realize it or not, a lot of the videos I've uploaded were results of me going on lengthy rabbit holes based on something you've told me. I once made a video about an entire series of Roblox hats at the request of one commenter. I know I'm very lucky to have a community like that, and I appreciate you guys wholeheartedly for it. But unfortunately, you know, I can't satisfy everyone. I can't say make an entire video about some random rare limited hat that's only special because Roblox decided it would be quirky if they only sold 44 copies of it, and I can't drop everything and make another 40+ minute documentary about a dead group with only 500 members. A lot of your video ideas are great, but I simply don't have enough time to make all of them. But if it's clear to me that there's something that all of you as a community really want me to talk about, I will deliver on that for you. I can promise you that. Or you could just pay me a bunch of Robux to plug your stuff for a while. So yeah, I guess you could technically say that this video is sponsored, but the joke's actually on them here, because that payment was entirely unnecessary. Robux or no Robux, ever since I've made my big video on all 4 official Roblox-owned lore groups, I've actually wanted to revisit the Knights of the Splintered Skies on their own for a while now. Because of that original lore groups video, I've been in the Knights Discord server and group for quite a while now, and pretty much every week I'll get a ping about something new and revolutionary that they've added. New original lore, new ceremonies, Discord events, trainings, promotions, battles, mysterious secret projects that I'm not really allowed to talk about, and much, much more. It's obvious to me that they've been evolving fast, and I've been growing more and more curious to see what all the fuss is about. What have they been doing all this time? How exactly have they been growing? I spent a week trying to figure that out recently, and let me just say that in my completely unbiased opinion, without me caring that they're paying me at all, this group might just be the best group on the entire platform. Not even joking. Let me explain. Good Roblox groups that exist for the sake of being a Roblox group are getting harder and harder to find these days. Most of the biggest groups out there right now are just fan clubs for talking about influencers and games, and even then, most of the real talk goes down in their Discord servers, leaving the groups as nothing more than vent areas for the kids who don't know what Discord is yet, and free advertising for spam bots. If these people wanted to, they could just advertise their Discord servers a lot and abandon Roblox altogether. Hell, half of these groups don't even have group walls at all. What's the point to this? Even the groups that are tied to Roblox in some way still kinda suck. Hotel and cafe roleplay groups are basically just unpaid labor simulators, and military groups can be pretty fun. Until you realize that no one cares what you're doing in them at all. There's no sense of community most of the time. It's usually just a bunch of people with no clue what they're doing, desperately trying to follow a set of rules handed down to them by higher-ups who also have no clue what they're doing.
Wait, I have a personal question.
What's the personal question?
Do you have Snap?
Bro, what? Bro.
There's a reason why out of the 1 million members that the British Army has, for example, only 18,000 have made it up to just the 3rd rank in the hierarchy. The rest haven't really been given a reason to care to try. The Knights of the Splintered Skies is one of the last groups on Roblox that I think truly breaks this norm. It's clear that they've gone above and beyond to make their group not just a group, but an active and dutiful community that's able to behave like an actual medieval knighthood and foster real long-lasting bonds and positive experiences. All on an online kids gaming platform featuring plastic block people. So what, you ask, have they done to deserve such praise? What have they been doing in the months since I've made my lore groups video that warrants them wanting to pay me 50,000 smackaroons to talk about? And why is it worthy of the obnoxious levels of praise that I've given it? Let's take a closer look at 3 cool things about this group that combined make it, in my opinion, the best group on Roblox. Now, if you're coming here without having seen that lore groups video that I mentioned, you've probably either clicked off already or been screaming at your device for the past few minutes, "Nitro! Who the hell are the Knights of the Splintered Skies?" And while that is a rather rude way of asking me that, I'll still give you a quick summary. The Knights of the Splintered Skies, or KOS for short, are particularly interesting because they're actually a group that is technically owned and created by Roblox themselves. The group was originally made to represent Roblox's Knights of the Splintered Skies brand, which is a part of a fantasy universe that Roblox once had huge plans for. They wanted to create a massive Roblox-wide battle event in which KOS would team up with 2 of the other fantasy brands they had invented, the Knights of Redcliffe and the Wizards of the Astral Central Isles to help defeat a third evil clan, the Roblox Empire. Various blog posts were posted leading up to this supposed event to promote the groups and offer some canon lore about them. Koss was introduced as a band of flying knights that live in the clouds and are in charge of quote-unquote keeping the peace. They're proficient in mostly ranged combat, they are magic users, and they look as if a deranged hockey player tried to craft wings for himself out of octopus tentacles and tablecloths. What a group. With promotion from both themed accessories on the catalog and consistent blog posts, members flooded into this official Koss group almost immediately, and a rudimentary backstory for the group began to be constructed. A finalized version was eventually placed in the group's description by its owner, then Roblox administrator Newtrat, thus officially making it canon. From our bases high in the frigid air above Mount Zargistan to the farthest reaches of the world, we, the Knights of the Splintered Skies, fight to defend Robloxia against all those who would overtake its peace in chaos. 5 centuries ago, blessed with powers of holy light, the great knight Dukran discovered the power of flight and founded our city Losindor in the sky. Since that day, we have defended the honor and the peace of Robloxia many times, yet no war has been as hard fought as the current battle against the Roblox. Yet with our mighty siege weapons making strides against the Robloxian advance, and the powers of light still defending against their aerial assault, we may, nay, we must, yet prevail. 1543 shall be the year not only of our greatest hardships, but of our greatest triumph. This description shared a platform with Adopt Me, by the way. With a cause to fight for and a steadily growing community, it seemed that Koss, along with the other official groups, would only keep on growing. Eventually, though, it became clear that Roblox's interest in these groups had started to fade. With no signs of the war event that Roblox had promised them, the only thing that they could do was keep training and training, which for many members got boring fast. When you're stuck with only a certain amount of information that you can use to base the entire backstory of your community on, you're going to run out of ideas eventually. Because, you see, these official groups didn't impose a lot of regulations on themselves at the time, but there was one thing they held fast to. The only way a piece of lore could be canon was if it was said by a Roblox staff member. After all, they were official Roblox-owned groups, right? So logically, that meant that Roblox must always be the ultimate decider of their fate. Even when it was obvious that the clans had long been fully abandoned by Roblox, the pieces of lore that group members did try to make to fill in the void were usually largely ignored by others, since they weren't considered truly canon. And that brings us to 2019. Koss had been stagnant for a while by that point, the only thing keeping it afloat being a YouTube campaign by an anonymous impersonator of its new owner, Roblox admin Stickmaster Luke. The clans in general were aging and becoming more and more forgotten, and since Koss were already portrayed as secondary characters to the Knights of Redcliffe in the original story, it was being affected particularly harshly. Needless to say, it wasn't looking good for Koss. And then, out of nowhere, someone took charge. A new challenger initiated a face-off against the monotony and was willing to do whatever it would take to whip Koss into shape, even if it meant going against the traditions that had been in place for nearly a decade. Equitas entered the scene. Equitas is a well-respected, high-ranking veteran of Koss, and in 2018, he took a year-long break from his duties towards the group. However, unbeknownst to his fellow group members, he wasn't just twiddling his thumbs while he was away. He spent the year hard at work creating a plan. A plan that, once enacted, would hopefully help bolster Koss as a meaningful group, improve its morale, and start legitimate growth again. And this is where Koss's dedication and effort will really start to shine through from now on, because for the past 2 years, he and his fellow high ranks have been hard at work enacting this plan, and the payoff has been immense. The goal of this plan was to establish complete and detailed lore about as many aspects of the group as possible, and in doing so, introduce new parts of the group which would in turn receive their own lore, creating a snowball effect resulting in a rapidly expanding universe. This would keep people interested in the group, make it seem much more serious, and encourage frequent discourse about it, both inside and outside the community. How would this be accomplished? Writing. Lots and lots of writing. Under Equitas, with support from Koss's owner Stickmaster Luke and the other high ranks, Koss has apparently commissioned several authors to write what will eventually amount to 1,000 years of completely made-up history and lore in great detail. Writers are paid 1,000 Robux per page written, and so far the amount of pages that have been written is a lot. If I tried to relay to you every single piece of lore that they've written so far, we would be here for days, so what I'm about to tell you is going to be an extremely brief summary that doesn't even come close to describing all of it. When you're done with this video, I urge you to join the Koss Discord where all of the documents I'll be referencing are stored, and read them yourself, because they honestly could almost be published as real fantasy books. They're just that good. Let's start with their origin story. The Age of Dukran. This story describes everything that happened during the lifetime of Lord Dukran, the canonical founder of Koss. One day, A being of pure energy was hanging out in a black void of nothingness and decided it would be kind of fun to try creating the fabric of reality and life itself, but it got a little too cocky and overdosed on its own power, causing itself to explode. This resulted in there being a bunch of magic power everywhere, some of which got absorbed by humans and some of which transformed into godly, near-immortal angelic beings called the Hydrians. The Hydrians were basically beta versions of Greek gods. They lived in the clouds, were in charge of keeping the natural order, and despite being near immortal, still needed to have kids for some reason. So eventually the Hydrians started reproducing, but one of them, a woman called Vencia, decided to be not like the other girls and reject the whole having kids thing. She instead ran away to Earth, found a handsome wizard called Patros, and decided, screw it, I am actually interested in keeping my species alive, and settled down with him. They had a son, who they named Dukran, and with the Hydrus or Hydrian power from his mom, and the Manus or human magic from his dad, he was a powerful little guy. As he grew up, he got more and more skilled in magic and became very popular, using his impressive abilities and selfless attitude to gain several devotees and followers. Unfortunately, Patros, while powerful, was still a human, and didn't have the infinite health buffer that is Hydrus magic. This resulted in him dying of old age while his wife and son were still fairly young. His wife was very sad, and decided to deal with this loss by, going insane and trying to level their entire village. Yeah, I'm being serious. Dukran had to battle his own mother to save the village, and actually won, but was then left parentless, so with nothing much else to do there, he gathered up his followers and they became a traveling band of knights, going around the world to save the people from danger. Some people they saved ended up being so grateful that they joined the band, and Dukran's following got bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, up in Hydrian land, aka the clouds, something was wrong. A massive snake was trying to eat all of them alive. This snake was known as Malcolm, and it was basically a manifestation of the empty void that the all-powerful being from before had deleted to install the universe. And believe it or not, the void wasn't too happy to have been deleted. It had been lying in wait, building up power to try and take back the Earth, and the only thing stopping it from getting there was the sky, which the Hydrians lived in. The Hydrians put up a good fight, but it was a losing battle. When your opponent is literally a manifestation of chaos itself, you're usually in for a tough time. But all of the commotion ended up attracting the attention of Dukran, who, sensing that his mother's people were in trouble, scaled a mountain several times bigger than Everest, known as Mount Zargastan, and used its summit as an access point to the Hydrian Sky Islands, where he found all of the surviving Hydrians and decided to soul-suck all of their magic out of them, making him powerful enough to ultimately explode Malcolm into a million pieces. The world was saved, and everyone could celebrate. There were just a couple of problems. For one thing, now that the Hydrians had no power, there was no one left to protect the skies anymore except Dukran, who had all the power, which meant that from now on, he would always have to stay on the island and couldn't adventure with anyone or see his followers again. The solution was to bless them all with a splinter of his power so that they could help protect people with sky magic and fly up to the islands to help set up base there and keep Dukran company. This was the creation of the Knights of the Splintered Skies. The other problem was that the Hydrians didn't much care for not being able to use their otherworldly god-tier magical powers anymore. Lots of them didn't like costs, but lots of them did, and they helped convince the ones that didn't that it was actually alright that they didn't have their powers anymore if it meant, you know, not getting eaten by a giant snake. Pretty soon, the Hydrians were all on Koss's side. All except one arrogant young one called Magna. And from here we get into a massive chain reaction plot that I don't really have time to properly explain here, but rest assured that it's pretty insane. It has giant laser crystals, a queen getting captured and transformed into a giant black dragon, mind control, betrayal, some guy with such a grudge against Koss that he pretends to be one of them as a double agent for an entire decade, and much more. By the end, Koss had grown to be a powerful, organized, and respected organization, and Dukran had become extremely old. He was getting too weak to keep control of his powers, and if he ever lost his grip on them, everyone would surely perish. So he decided to transfer all of his power to his son, Nuriel. A 10-day feast was held in his honor, and the one thing he left behind after transferring his power and evaporating, a feather, was buried in front of his castle for all of his adoring followers and fellow honorable knights to be with forevermore. And that, my friends, is the very, very abridged tale of Lord Dukran and how Koss came to be. I do genuinely find this to be a pretty great story. If I had to give it a few criticisms, the only things I would say about it are that, one, it could feel more cohesive. I kind of felt like I was reading 3 separate stories at certain points instead of one interconnected thing. And 2, despite being well over 100 pages long, it's ironically still too short in my opinion. I can tell that this story still has a ton of potential that could be unlocked if certain details were described at more length. But even still, the continuity and language style was impressive. The relationships and characteristics of the characters were well established, established, and I found myself genuinely immersed in what was happening, which is a lot more than you can say for most Roblox groups' lore. Of course, lore isn't just about great storytelling. The majority of world building, in fact, is figuring out the boring but important bits and explaining those in just as much detail as the cool stuff, which COS also does well. In the document called COS Magic Technology and Resources, for example, which is nearly 200 pages long, practically everything about the universe COS lives in is mentioned. From different types of magic to different subsets of those types of magic to all the factions that exist within the society, to elements, to artifacts, it's all in there, described in excruciating detail. Again, it would take me all day to tell you everything in here, so let me just tell you about one chapter in here so that you can get a sense of just how detailed they are. The Schools of Hydrus Magic. Hydrus magic, if you haven't already been able to figure this out from context clues, is the otherworldly magic that was formerly exclusive to the Hydrian race and is now exclusively used by them and COS to keep the peace. The way it works is through the manipulation of the Aether, a passive energy that floats around all across the universe. Aether on its own can be used to do very cool things, essentially bending the fabric of reality itself at certain points. Aether can also be manipulated to transform into a tangible energy known as ether, which can affect the physical world a lot more. In order to better quantify the wide range of actions that can be done with Hydrus magic, COS split it into 5 separate schools of focus: Lumen, Valore, Azimuth, Harmonic, and Essence. The Lumen school involves using light energized with energy from hidden spirit realms in a variety of ways. Practitioners can create shields of light, make light appear out of pitch black darkness, heal physical and spiritual wounds, and even conduct seances, which allow the living to communicate with the dead. It's very defense-oriented, and practitioners of it are essential to most battles. The Valore school is all about body modification. They use ether to give their bodies temporary enhancements in the form of extra body parts made out of pure light energy. Common add-ons are bird-like parts such as wings for flight and tail feathers for extra mobility, but practitioners have been known to add everything from dragon scales for increased protection to enhancements that increase their eyesight in the dark and their hearing. This school is used by every Sky Knight in order to allow them to fly, and it produces a huge ability boost to mages during battles. Inevitably, though, I think we all know who gets the most out of this type of magic at the end of the day. The Azimuth school involves taking natural elements such as water, lightning, and fire and infusing them with Aether to make them more awesome. For example, Aether-infused lightning is known as Radiant Lightning, which can pierce through solid objects without losing any charge, and Aether-infused fire is known as Skyfire, which burns blue and has the ability to trap enemies inside it while burning and numbing them. The Harmonic school just likes making stuff explode, I guess. It's basically the Valore school, except this time, instead of binding the ether to yourself, you bind it to other objects. The ether hates this for some reason. It's incredibly unstable whenever you try to bind it to something that isn't you, and tends to decay a short time after it's created. Sometimes non-violently, and sometimes non-violently. The benefit to this, though, is that Harmonic mages can create whatever they need to help them out in battle, from a weapon to a whole new lookout spot, and then abandon it and wait for someone else to try to use it, only to be blown to smithereens on the spot. You just better hope that someone else isn't another knight. Finally, there's Essence, which is kind of forbidden for most people to use because it involves dealing with souls. A well-trained Essence user can trap an enemy's soul and purify it from corruption, see its true intentions, or even cripple or completely unravel it. Unfortunately, the downside here is that if you expend too much energy using Essence magic, your own soul will unravel, and once that happens, there will be no trace of you left, both in real life and in the afterlife. You'll simply cease to exist, so if you like having your soul around, maybe avoid this one for now. I could honestly go on and on about these Hydrus schools because there's so much more information about them and indeed every other type of magic, resource, and artifact in COS's universe. And the lore still doesn't end there. They have full schematics of the ranks of their military and special operations groups, manifestos of all the leadership and high rank positions, schematics on the geography of the entire kingdom of COS both in the air and on the ground, and even a catalog of all the cool animals that exist in the universe. One particular one that they wanted me to mention was the Cloudworm, which is a favorite of the community and probably my favorite too now, because look at them. They're white, slightly translucent worms that live in the clouds and sometimes rain down on the populace before getting absorbed back up to the sky again harmlessly, and they're so innocuous and cute looking that you can't really help but love them. Once you get past the wriggling, of course. You can clearly see that COS really values their past, even if it is a past that's completely made up by themselves, and the members of COS have reacted extremely positively to this practice. Lengthy discussions and suggestions for add-ons take place every time a new piece of lore is released, and dozens of lore ideas have been submitted to the lore authors over the past few months. By taking so much care, they've made it feel like you're participating in an actual fandom instead of a one-dimensional scenario like in many other combat-based groups, and they're doing all the better because of it. But that alone isn't the reason for COS's well-deserved growth. In fact, that has a lot to do with cool thing number 2. If there's one thing Cost values, it's their community. Even though they've grown to over 55k members at this point, every single one of them is treated like they matter. Higher-ups pay close attention to every single person individually at events like trainings, and I've honestly never seen a group wall with more civil and positive conversations on it before. There's a lot of things that they've been doing that really let that sense of community shine through in my opinion, so let's take a look at some of them, starting with the thing I just mentioned. Training. Cost does host regular combat trainings that are similar to those you would find in other military groups, but they also host magical matches, one of which I attended, and I can't overstate how much fun it was. After everyone joined the training place, the event started with copies of specially programmed magical spellbook gears being handed out to everyone, and everyone getting to test them out. Blaze Trooper, our training leader, explained what each spell in the spellbooks did, and how they had been updated and fine-tuned since the last training. Each spellbook corresponded to one Hydrus magic school, with the exception that Essence was replaced by Balance, a combination of the other 4 schools. We learned each spellbook's strengths and weaknesses, and we received tips on how to use certain spells with other spells to heighten our attacks. I missed some information that I probably would have been better off learning due to all the chaos from the spells being tested, but I can still appreciate the effort put in here. After the testing and explanation phase, the combat began. There were 3 rounds. The first was a free-for-all in which everyone was simply trying to achieve as many kills as possible. Infinite deaths were allowed, and whenever you died, you would get to choose a new spellbook to use. It was obvious that I was the newbie of the group, but I did still manage to squeeze out a kill or 2. The second round was much more interesting. It was basically the same as the free-for-all, except this time we were separated into 2 teams, and our objective was to control as many flags as possible. Surprisingly, I actually managed to capture a flag for our team, by which I of course mean I flew around the flag frantically trying not to get hit while Blaze Trooper did all the heavy lifting. But I did at least manage to kill more people than last time, and even though that still wasn't enough for my team to win, it was still a very close battle, and I loved being able to see all of the more experienced mages at work. Finally, there was the most interesting round of all, the survival round. This time we were only allowed a maximum of 10 deaths, and instead of our fellow knights, our goal was to kill specially programmed enemy NPCs of several different hostile groups. We were attacked by the Emerald Knights of the 7th Sanctum, the Asuna Samurai, who don't even have an official group, and even rogue members of the Wizards of the Astral Isles, which were apparently put there as a prank one time and just left there because their fighting style rules. I did manage to get through this one without even coming close to 10 deaths, mostly because I'm a coward and tended to run away a lot, but I also managed to get pretty good at the Harmonic Spellbook and was able to swing a pretty decent kill count with it. This spell where you fire balls of ether was one of my favorites, and that combined with the Runes of Purity spell, which heals you instantly, made for an awesome playthrough. I was impressed by how Blaze Trooper was able to pay attention to the combat and see people's strengths and weaknesses, even when he himself was participating in it. He was able to praise and critique specific parts of people's strategies and see exactly what worked and what didn't about the books. And I know that the next time these books are used, they'll work better than ever. He wasn't a strict leader either. He was able to take rule breaks that didn't matter too much pretty lightly, and be firm when he needed to be. At one point, a friend of mine who wasn't affiliated with Koss in any way joined the game and tried to stand on the lines and participate in the match with everyone else, even though he wasn't technically allowed to, and Blaze treated him like just another knight and let him do so anyway. Meanwhile, when a bot joined and started spamming someone's name in the chat, he was quick to boot it and lock down the server. Things like this really showed me that he was dedicated to the training, and as an extension of that, the community behind it, which I really appreciate. It's always nice to have your specific achievements be honored, because it shows that people have been paying attention to you and what you've been doing has made a difference, which is why I think it's really great that Koss conducts a full-fledged promotion ceremony in front of a crowd every time someone moves up in rank. They've created a beautiful-looking arena-like chamber to represent a room on the inside of the big castle in their City of Losindor map, and they've programmed it with a ton of custom animations for every type of promotion ceremony that can be conducted. What's more is that these ceremonies are continuous with the lore. According to Koss magic, technology, and resources, in order to start a career as a knight, you have to have your soul be blessed with Sanctus, which is a small splinter of the Hydrian power that the Aether Overseer, the supreme ruler of Koss, wields. During the promotion ceremony for this rank, the knight-to-be is made to kneel, he's tapped on the shoulder twice by the sword of a high rank, and a yellow beam of light is sent into him as a visible representation of the Sanctus blessing. Other animations include the gifting of a light-enchanted sword and shield for the Skyguard promotion, the addition of white wings for the Alar Knight promotion, after forcibly hurling you down 20 feet into a hardstone floor of course, and the Empyrean Protector promotion, which involves a blinding white light enchantment for your shield, followed by your slamming of the floor with the shield in retaliation for the concussion that your Alar Knight promotion gave you. All of these animations were made by user Knightsalot, by the way, so if you ever need something animated, be sure to check them out. Now, despite how empty it is in the recording I took, for most significant ceremonies, there are a lot more people there, including, if you're lucky, Stickmaster Luke himself. It really says something about the dedication of a group's owner to their community, when even though they are someone like the Stickmaster Luke, a prominent and busy Roblox admin and game developer, not to mention the second richest trader in the entirety of Roblox, right behind Roblox's own official Roblox account, they still take time out of their day to manage their group and attend their meetings. things. Though you probably shouldn't get too close to him because you might set off his band of Civitatum Presidio Knights, which is essentially his band of Secret Service agents. They're authorized to use magically charged guns as well as extremely fast-paced close-quartered combat, and to get to that position, they've gone through extensive training and maintain perfect clean records, so I wouldn't cross them if I were you. Ceremonies and trainings aren't the only kind of events that KOS takes place in, though. In real life, most societies celebrate special days like holidays and festivals, and KOS is no different. One holiday that they observe, for example, is the Masquerade of Liars, which is basically their version of Halloween. The only difference is that theirs is a week long, which I think is a missed opportunity for us real-lifers. You're telling me we could have my favorite holiday for an entire week? Come on. Anyway, Masquerade of Liars Week is awesome. It's meant to celebrate all the battles KOS has fought and won throughout the centuries, strengthen connections with the spirit realm, and in the end, purge the kingdom from evil. Here's what happens. Festivities start out with families making decorations made to resemble great figures from the past, whether they be heroes or enemies. Additionally, many figurines of a similar vein are crafted, which are then placed in military-like formations throughout the villages. Basically, the entire town gets into spooky mode. Next, the first real event is held, a costume contest. People of all ages compete to see who can make the most creative and impressive costume of a figure from KOS history, which again can either be friendly or unfriendly. In-game, this usually manifests itself as a group-wide avatar contest, the winner of which receives a handsome Robux prize. Then comes the main portion of the holiday, the battling. Over the next few days, various battles will be held against magical replicas of long-dead foes from battles of old. Sometimes, if the foe in question is a beast that has species members still alive today, it will be captured and put into a state where it can be battled without causing any casualties to the battlers. The goal here isn't bloodshed, it's simply to show off what the knights can do. Every once in a while, Lumen Mages will call back the spirits of former KOS heroes from the dead, and they'll face off against their own knights. Lord Dukan himself, in fact, is a common foe in this situation. The crowds love it, the military loves the challenge, and everyone has a great time. The final day of the masquerade is less bloodshed-free. This is the day of the Apostles' Quest, when a high-ranking martial arts expert from the religious organization the Hydrian Temple will lead a group of experienced warriors and exorcists to help defeat a zombified former high-ranking knight that got possessed by corrupt magic long ago. No one quite knows how this possession happened, or even who the original knight was, but he comes back to the same spot every year and needs to be defeated as quickly as possible once he does, so that he doesn't become too powerful to stop. Unlike in the public battles I mentioned earlier, this fallen knight is an actual enemy that does aim to kill anyone in his way, so casualties are unfortunately common. Every year, though, the warriors that helped defeat him and the church apostle that led them receive great honor and respect from the public, and it's a very fulfilling task to carry out, assuming you survive. Another holiday enjoyed by the community is Unification Day. This one, while much simpler than the Masquerade of Liars, is still just as fun because it involves you and your fellow KOS members throwing snowballs at each other. Long ago, shortly after Dukran's passing, there was a massive civil war in KOS. Two parties, the Retainers and the Disciples of the Frozen North, had very different ideas of how Hydrus magic should be handled, and this conflict would erupt into a long war amongst the knights. During Unification Day, this history is reenacted with a trip to the site of the war's final battle, where everyone splits into teams representing the Retainers and the Disciples, and tries to get as many knockouts as possible with snowballs. The team with the most knockouts wins, and everyone usually has a good time. If you couldn't already tell by the footage I've been using, both the Masquerade of Liars and Unification Day are not only in-lore holidays, but the battles they call for are fought in-game every year using one of KOS's many battle arena places. KOS has created various scripts that allow them complete control of what the Masquerade foes do. They've coded the mechanics of the snowball fight entirely from scratch, and they've even added the extra stake to the Masquerade battles of the arena collapsing over time as the battles go on. These events not only serve as things for group members to look forward to each year, but also as bonding activities that help to further that sense of community. But the events don't even stop there. The KOS Discord server is actively maintained as well, and it's been known to play host to several other contests and bonding activities over the past few months, all of which have awarded high amounts of Robux as prizes, with the winner of the most recent emoji contest receiving a shocking 10,000 Robux, and winners 2, 3, and 4 receiving 7,000, 5,000, and 3,500 Robux respectively. From building competitions, to art competitions, to writing competitions, to emoji design competitions, you can expect to be doing a variety of different things when you join here, not just fighting. Several awesome pieces of art, lore, and games have come out of these contests, by the way, so winning these doesn't just reward the original artists, it rewards the entire group as well. I, for one, love this frog emoji, and will probably use it heavily if and when I ever get Discord Nitro. Simply put, everything that this group does is done with its community being the first consideration. They're always trying to find ways to let their members' work, dedication, and achievements shine through to the public and prove that their members really do matter to them, which is a practice that many similar groups could probably take notes from. from. Too often I see groups that pride themselves on their rules and strictness more than anything else, which can often lead to power-high mods and a general sense of overbearingness and a lack of group purpose. But I wonder if these groups have ever considered that maybe the reason they receive so many trolls in the first place is because some people don't really see the point in bending to the whims of some random Robloxians just because they're wearing uniforms and pretending to be hotel staff. If you're trying to set up a strict set of rules to be followed on a platform where one of the key aspects of it is that you can do anything you can imagine, you can't expect everyone who you come in contact with to be on board with sticking to that mold. You can still roleplay and still keep to a set of rules, but there's no need to lash out at anyone who dares break character in any way. If you, as a high-ranking group member, let your community do more of what it wants to do instead of resisting them so hard, maybe the community will do the exact same for you. The people of Kos are very dedicated to the universe that they've created, and there's hardly any trolls or drama. The only time I've ever witnessed someone that had to have disciplinary action taken against them at all was during the magical training I attended, and that was that spam bot that I mentioned earlier. Some people are just like that, I guess. Overall though, the relationship that Kos has with most of its community is unlike anything else I've seen, and it really deserves a lot more members than it currently has. And just maybe, if they keep going with what I'm about to talk about next, they'll get more. So, we've already established that Kos is doing a lot, but it doesn't really matter how much you can do if you don't have the momentum to keep doing that much for a while. It's great that they're doing everything they're doing right now, but where will they be in a few years? How will they keep members coming back for more? A group that can readily and truthfully answer these kinds of questions is pretty much set for life, and let's just say, Kos definitely has some answers. Even though they've already released hundreds upon hundreds of pages of lore at this point, they still have much more in the works. They're currently busy writing the Age of Nerial, which will act as a sequel to the Age of Dukran, and catalog exactly what that civil war that I mentioned earlier was all about. New materials, resources, animal species, magic types, and much more are continuously added to the existing lore documents multiple times per month. And they've even gone so far as to hire a professional geologist to help make sure their environments are all scientifically plausible. In the further feature, they plan on expanding all of the stories they've made into longer, more high-stakes novels, and getting them professionally edited and published into a real book series. And they've already started to get in contact with real professional editors who might be up to such a task. More holidays and celebrations are being developed, new games are constantly being worked on, the hierarchy and guide are always being reworked. There's a lot going on in terms of future-proofing here. And Kos is actually in a very lucky spot right now, because like I mentioned earlier, their owner has pretty much infinite Robux to pour into them if he wants. So no matter what happens, as long as he stays active, the group is pretty much guaranteed to only get better from here. Hell, they commissioned this video, didn't they? Left alone, me shilling them for 30 minutes long probably wouldn't reach nearly as many people as it is now that Kos has most likely put it on blast on their Discord server, and I'm not complaining, but what I am saying is that it shows how much they're willing to do for their group, and how much resource they can and will put into it, even if they aren't guaranteed any returns on their investment. I truly believe that Kos is on the brink of another golden age for themselves. They're doing so much, and at some point, one of their endeavors will inevitably go viral. 55k members may seem like a lot, but they have so much more potential than that. If groups like this one can achieve 1 million members, then the fact that Kos hasn't already achieved that is criminal, and I know that they will one day. They have planned heavily for their future, and as a result, their future is looking bright. I will admit that I initially had a lot of reservations about making this video. Not only is Kos a group that I've covered in some capacity before, and I really don't like the idea of reusing topics, but I was extremely worried about losing my authenticity from this. Kos did seem like a great group when I researched them initially, but did they really deserve a long video just for themselves full of nothing but positives? Would this video turn out to be nothing more than a giant lie? Would making this video really be worth it? I've realized that as a YouTuber, you really have to pick your sponsors carefully, otherwise you just end up making a video with no soul to it, and it just feels like a big long television commercial. It's only when you have actual positive experiences with something that you can relay to your audience with genuine emotion and feeling that I feel like sponsored videos are okay. And I hope that I've been able to successfully relay to you my own positive experiences because I really did have a lot of them. I also noticed a ton of things that although they didn't necessarily pertain to me, I was genuinely impressed by, such as the promotion ceremonies, artwork, lore, and much more. And when you take everything into consideration, from their awesome games and awesome comprehensive lore, to their genuine caring and time investment in each of their members individually, to their dedication to the universe, to their steadfastness against whatever the future may bring, I think it's safe to say that as a group, the Knights of the Splintered Skies are one of, if not the best, that Roblox currently has to offer. I would like to mention that if you're part of one of the other lore groups and not Kos, you have no reason to be ashamed of that whatsoever. All of the lore groups are great. The Knights of Redcliffe is an awesome no magic military group, Roblox is great if you're going for something with a Kos vibe except much more evil, and the Wizards of the Astral Isles? Well, maybe not all of them, but with the right leaders, even the wizards might eventually pull even with their counterparts. COS just has a ton of resource, active leadership, and drive that it can use to further the lore group's ideals, which is why I think it's the best one to join right now, but also consider checking out the other groups, because I think that with enough attention, these groups could resume their lives as the powerhouses that they once were, and they really deserve that. Roblox has proven time and time again that they don't care about these people at all. Let's show them, together, that we do.